Good afternoon, house guests. Come on in and have a seat. Let me pour you some cold iced tea. I am Emmy, and this is the House of Cheddar podcast. And today we are still talking about Blake Lively's weight. No offense to Blake Lively, but we are looking at Judge Lyman's dismissal of Ryan Reynolds and all of the evidence that he's just basically ignored. Per se, the personal trainer, sex deposition, Jamie Heath's testimony, Justin Baldoni's testimony. We'll also take a look at Blake's 56.1 response, and then we'll also take a look at the sealed declaration and the refusal by Blake to have her personal trainer deposed, and just a couple of things that Judge Lyman blatantly missed. So I'm hoping that the Wayfair parties appeal that, because it's, well, you guys know. So let me share my screen. And I'm going to go and pop over to Judge Lyman's ruling and opinion, and we'll start right up here for context. The Wayfair parties argue that Reynolds defamed Baldoni by telling WME executive at the premiere of his movie Deadpool and Wolverine that Baldoni was an actual predator, and using the same term in a phone call to Baldoni's agent. The term actual predator is broader than the terms actual assault, or SA, but in this context could reasonably be understood to imply that Baldoni engaged in misconduct towards Lively. However, as with Sloan, Reynolds was not present for any events during filming, and the amended complaint does not provide any reason he would have doubted Lively's version of events. I kind dispute that. Plaintiff does not allege facts that would have prompted defendants to question the reliability of any sources. In fact, several allegations in the complaint support that Reynolds believed that Baldoni engaged in misconduct towards Lively. During pre-production, Reynolds screamed at Baldoni after finding out that Baldoni had asked his trainer about Lively's weight. Reynolds then later yelled at Baldoni and demanded that he apologize for actions that had never happened in connection with the return to production demands, becoming further enraged when Baldoni refused to apologize. Given that the return to production demands concerned Baldoni's alleged inappropriate behavior towards Lively, the obvious inference is that Reynolds was yelling about Baldoni about his alleged behavior. These facts tend to suggest that Reynolds believed that Baldoni had inappropriately commented on Lively's body and then engaged in inappropriate or predatory actions towards Lively during filming. The Wayfair parties argue that actual malice can be inferred from Reynolds' deep disdain for Baldoni and the fact that he was trying to convince WME to drop Baldoni when he made the predator statements. But as noted above, actual malice refers to knowledge of falsity or recklessness with respect to truth rather than a motive to harm, and motive alone is insufficient to show malice. So let's take a look at the timeline. And we'll start right up here with February 9, 2029. This is after Blake Lively signed on to the project. And to note, this is when she returned to the project, she just had her son. Okay, so she was still bouncing back. So February 9, 2023, Lively and Baldoni exchange texts. She jokes with Baldoni that she is 20 pounds from her goal weight. Baldoni responds by disliking the message. Lively thanks Baldoni for his friendship and support. Okay. And then March 29, 2023, Lively shares with Baldoni that she has strep throat, and Baldoni offers to send her some amazing gut health protocols that help after antibiotics. Lively responds, please. As a result, Baldoni reached out to his board certified integrative holistic health coach and connects them. Lively shares that they connected, saying she's incredible. Lively later claimed in her CRD complaint that this health coach was actually a weight loss specialist and that this was all a ruse for Baldoni to subtly fat shame her. Well, we did look at Jennifer Benson, and you can clearly see on her Google profile that she is, in fact, a board certified integrative holistic health coach. It does not mention weight loss. Also, of note, I will say that the Lively parties did subpoena Jennifer Benson, and what they were looking for was anything related to antibiotics, or I believe, I'm sorry, probiotics, anything related to probiotics, and anything related to weight loss. But when Wayfair parties tried to subpoena the same thing from Blake Lively objected. So they got no records from her. So what is she trying to hide with that statement? Anyways, I'll continue. Let me go back to this timeline. Sorry, guys. So April 13th, 2023, she's ill again for a third time. Baldoni asks if she would like to speak with his health coach. Okay. And we already talked about that. So this is the infamous meeting. This timeline leaves out Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman being at the penthouse. But Baldoni was summoned by Lively to her penthouse and greeted by Reynolds, who swore at Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming his wife. How dare you fluffing ask about my wife's weight? What's wrong with you? The tone from Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to his trainer, not Lively. Reynolds demanded that Baldoni remove the lift scene entirely. And we will talk about this scene, not the fact that it was removed, but we'll put a pin in that and come back to it. But in Lively's complaint, she falsely states that this scene wasn't even in the film. And this is going to be problematic from her, right? Suggesting it never existed. Contrary to her attempt to manipulate verifiable facts, the only reason the scene was not in the film is that Lively and Reynolds demanded it be removed, despite the fact that it had already been rehearsed with a stunt double. Accommodating Lively, Baldoni rewrote the scene with her. That's interesting. Baldoni rewrote the scene with her. So together they rewrote the scene. So she's getting her claws into the script already in here. Let's mark this date. I want to mark this date. April 25th. Okay. So She apparently used her weight or this incident to gain access to the script. Is that what they're saying? Let me know in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe, like. Okay. For creative reasons, he was felt that the scene was necessary, and I'm going to look at the script to figure out which this is. Baldoni was stunned by Lively's accusation because when Lively had earlier expressed concern about her postpartum figure on February 17 and February 24, Baldoni generally reassured her that she did not need to worry about her body. In fact, it was Lively who insisted that she be fit for the role despite Baldoni's assurances. In this meeting, Baldoni was aggressively confronted by Reynolds and Lively. Lively told Baldoni that if he could not get on board with how she works, he still had 2 weeks to recast her. So we'll also take a look at her offer letter, 2 versions of them. Let me, on this document, look for trainer, just to make sure I'm not missing anything on this timeline. No. We'll take a look at this. This is the memorandum of support for Wayfarer's motion of summary judgment. So let's take a look at this. It also talks about her weight. Lively's own evidence further undermines her claim. It confirms Baldoni's stated motivation in privately inquiring about her weight was not to demean her as a woman, but to anticipate his own physical obligations. Now, do you see how this is blacked out? And this is Saladino's declaration. So remember Saladino declaration, okay, for me? Because my fibro is working for a time. Oh. And I'll show you this. Declaration of Don Saladino in support of memorandum in law in opposition to motion, filed by Blake Lively. Well, to be fair, like the rest of them. But it's sealed. One, it's probably sealed on Justin Baldoni's side because of HIPAA laws and whatever, possibly. And they probably were just like trying to be nice to her too. But it would be bad news bears for Blake, right? If this were true, as it says or as it alludes in this. Okay, let me see if it is in this footnote. Let me just make sure I'm done with this document, that there's nothing else. But isn't that interesting? Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't read this other part. Lively's trainer opinion, blank Saladino, is neither admissible nor competent evidence on summary judgment, nor does Lively dispute that she herself repeatedly raised concerns about her. And I'm going to say that's weight. I'm going to hypothesize that's weight. But do we all know how in the 17-point agreement, Lively was able to elevate Miss Sachs to the same, I guess, authority or level as Jamie Heath? Do you remember that? Well, Miss Sachs, if you ask her about her weight, we'll talk about this. What exactly did Mr. Baldoni tell you about the incident with Miss Lively's trainer? Well, he said that he had asked the trainer what her weight was because he had a back injury and he was going to have to be lifting her in one of the intimate scenes. And I guess the trainer, I don't even know if the trainer responded, but the trainer took that question and went to Ryan and Blake and told them about it. And what happened that day was that Ryan and Blake confronted Justin about it. It sounded like they were very upset and asked him why, how he could possibly do that. Again, I don't remember all the details, but it sounded like it went on for a bit. And then Justin was very upset, so he called Jamie and I to come hear about it. Did Mr. Baldoni, if you know, ever apologize to Miss Lively? I believe he did, but I don't exactly recall. As the producer of a movie in which the lead actor has to lift the lead actress, did you find anything offensive about Mr. Baldoni trying to find out how much she weighed? Objection. I don't know that I find it offensive. I understand it on a practical level, but she was a woman who had just had a baby and was clearly uncomfortable about her body and her weight. So it's more of an insensitive, stupid question that maybe we could have gotten the answer another way. So this producer on this movie still considered that maybe we should get her weight in order to protect the back of the co-lead. But instead, they used this incident to rewrite the script. Nice. How cunning was that? But that still goes. So Alex Sachs' testimony goes against what Judge Lyman was opining. And let's take a look at this. Take a look at Saladino. This is Blake Lively's disputes. So let's go all the way up to 77. Just for context. On February 28, 2023, after the initial meeting, Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, wrote to Baldoni. Blacked out. Undisputed. Here we go. On or around April 23, 2023, outside the workplace and outside the presence of any Wayfair Studios or It Ends With Us movie employee, Baldoni privately asked a private trainer he had consulted with, who was working separately with Lively, what Lively would weigh when filming began. This is the Second Amendment complaint, Baldoni's deposition. This is her response. Undisputed that Baldoni asked Lively's longtime personal trainer how much Lively would weigh when filming began. Okay. That's not disputed. But otherwise disputed is incomplete and misleading. Why is that? The cited testimony does not establish where Baldoni was located when he asked Lively's longtime personal trainer about her weight. Does that really matter, the location? Nor does it identify who was present at the time. Does that really matter? And does that take away from the initial reason why Justin Baldoni was asking that question? The testimony also does not support the assertion that this occurred outside the presence of any Wayfair Studios or It Ends With Us movie employee. Again, does that really matter? To the contrary, Baldoni testified that he shared screenshots of this conversation with Mitz Tuskovic, who is employed by Wayfair as the VP of Operations. Okay, again, there is Saladino's declaration. And does it really matter if he referred this to the person of VP operations when Miss Sachs over here said that we could get it another way. And what about this? This is Justin Baldone's text message. Though it is dated on 8/14, it does have context to her weight problem. I mean, Blake Lively's fat, whatever. I'm trying to be nice. I guess I'm too nice to her. Where is the Rathro Proser when you need her? If it becomes a thing, we can say my hospital infection was due to me getting stem cells in my herniated disc. This is part of the timeline that Judge Liman has. So he also ignored this context. In my back because I was in so much discomfort. Wow, you're in discomfort? It sounds like chronic pain. Maybe you have a herniated disc, which is a medical condition and a chronic condition for your back. And if you lift something wrong, it can cause issues. So you might want to prepare your back. And you can point to my IG post from stem cell results that I'm going back to get done for my herniated discs in my back. Wow, it sounds like this is a reoccurring chronic problem. It's really unfortunate for Justin Baldoni, though, for him to have back problems. I think he's way too young for it, in my opinion. And I hope that he gets some sort of relief. So this is Justin Baldoni's testimony or deposition. So I think this is already, can we establish that this is already like an issue of fact for a jury? Or is it a straight issue of fact for the judge that he just missed that? Let me see here. Okay. So who is Dan Saladino? He's a personal trainer. Is he Miss Lively's personal trainer? I would assume so. And what about your text message with him? Did you believe at the time would help demonstrate the truth of what happened? The communication between him and myself that showed that he was also working with me. How many screenshots do you recall sending to Mitts? I wish I could tell you. I don't know. More than 2? Yeah. More than 5? Probably more than 10. That was a very hard time. I will say yes. So why does all of that matter? Because they're just trying to support Blake Lively's narrative. Let me make sure I did this. Okay. And again, they're talking about the weight and how, let me see, 297. I'm sure this didn't skip. Okay, let's start down here. Sorry, guys. What do you remember sharing with her about your experience on set? I specifically remember sharing the situation with our trainer and asking him what he thought Miss Lively might weigh when we shot the scene where I had to pick her up because of my back. So there's text messages going to the personal trainer about his back. Again, how did the judge not see that or consider that? I hope they appeal. And how they confronted me, or hopefully they can, and how they confronted me the next day, and how this trainer evidently then went and told her that I was asking her about her weight or something. And then that became this big thing. and they sat me down, and I just remember her kind of not being able to believe that was even a thing. I believe I shared with her that I made a comment about the way Jenny Slate looked in her wardrobe, and then I used the word sexy. I think she started responding by joking about how, again, I don't want to, if it's okay, repeat the words that she said, but describing, generalizing the women and their fragility. Then I shared, I think I talked about the wardrobe, how hard it was with the wardrobe, and just that it felt like it was just a very hard experience. Like, that's kind of what I remember. So he's sharing what he remembers about that weight. Again, these are Jamie Heath's text message talking about, making sure they're documenting the weight. Again, this is Jamie Heath. In this text message, it referenced some of those. Yes. So you were aware of the incident that you told Ms. Toskovit about prior to June 17, 2024. Correct. Objection. Was I aware? Yes, I was aware that Justin met with the trainer. I was aware he asked about the weight. I was aware of some of those things. Yes. So all of the producers were aware. One producer was aware and agreed that they should be able to get Blake Lively's weight one way or the other, and maybe in a more sensitive way. Jamie Heath was aware, and lucky for Blake Lively, she was able to starting to rewrite the script in April 2023. This is just Blake Lively's objection to the definition of Saladino, her personal trainer, on the grounds that it is vague, ambiguous, overbroad, unduly burdensome, and not reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible information, in that the definition includes not only Don Saladino, but also unidentified employees, representative agents, subsidiaries, affiliates, accountants, attorneys, blah, blah, blah. She just doesn't want anybody to talk to him. Why? If it was so bad. But of course, they also used it in the 17-point agreement to gain even more control. To gain more control and to leverage Alex to be the tiebreaker, or to be having the same levels of Jamie. So why is that important? This is one of the offer letters, and this is where it talks about approval. Artists will have mutual approval rights over the following: mutual hair and makeup, personnel, any material changes over the role in the screenplay. Get it? Director with Justin Baldoni pre-approved. So Justin Baldoni, she agreed, would already be pre-approved. Co-lead for the picture. Okay. And within 3 weeks prior to start of principal photography, producer shall have tie-breaking rights over all mutual approvals. So Blake Lively needed a tiebreaker. So at the time of It Ends With Us, the producers were, I believe, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, and Alex Sachs. 3 producers against 1 Blake Lively. So Blake Lively needed leverage. During filming, she already got Alex Sachs on her side. So 1 down. So now you have 2 versus 2. So, how is Blake Lively going to get more leverage? Well, she needs more producers. She needs to stack the court in her favor. How is she going to stack the court? By adding 2 more producers for creative decisions. Let me just show you this. It all makes sense. Wayfair will engage an additional experienced A-level producer approved by artist. Whoops. I don't know why. I don't know what motive you would have for Blake Lively pre-approving a outside producer. Oh, let's just continue. Todd Black is hereby approved by the approved producer to actively supervise the production, including monitoring the safety of the cast and crew, ensuring compliance with the schedule, and overseeing logistics, problem solving, and creative issues, provided that company shall have the right to approve the agreement with the approved producer. So Blake Lively stacked her court. In an early meeting with Baldoni, Lively foreshadowed what was to come, stating, "I'm afraid you have too much power," referencing Baldoni's dual role as producer and director. This statement made an early impact on Baldoni, who felt compelled to reassure her the relationship would be collaborative, and went above and beyond to make it so. This was not an invitation to sideline him and his producing partners. She stacked the court. That's how she sidelined him. That's how she sidelined him. Producer shall have tie-breaking rights over all mutual approvals. Here it is again. Artists will have mutual approval rights over the following: hair, Ann Carroll, pre-approved; makeup, Vivian Baker, pre-approved; wardrobe personnel, stand-in, stunt double if any; the screenplay, she had approval over that; director, who was pre-approved; and any replacement. But listen, Justin Baldoni was pre-approved. She also had the power to replace him as director. Do you think that's why she was leveraging Alex Sachs and asking her to get her a director's cut or a director's credit? Or did she not have all of the votes? And the co-lead for the picture, Justin Baldoni, pre-approved. Wait a minute. So if she was being essayed so bad, she had the choice at the time to replace Justin Baldoni. And she stacked the court, so she could have still replaced Justin Baldoni at any time. But you know what I think? I think she needed Justin Baldoni, 1, to use as leverage, but 2, to gain his audience. And any replacement thereof. Meaningful consultation over the look of the role and campaign and release pattern. Hair and makeup personnel are exclusive to artist. Peter Owen is pre-approved as wig maker. He didn't make a good wig maker, in my opinion. So, I ask you, when Judge Liman wrote this, did he consider that Justin Baldoni might have had some evidence support the claims, including the trainer that he asked? Although Baldoni allegedly denied this behavior, Mere denials, however vehement, are so commonplace in the world of polemical charge and countercharge that in themselves they hardly alert the listener to the likelihood of error. Well, Judge, did you not see the text message? Did you not see the declaration that's sealed? That apparently nobody gets to see? What about this text message that you have from Wayfair parties? Well, you guys, that is today's episode. I'm sorry I did not make the live. I'm hoping that this gets to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And I hope to see you tomorrow morning, regular time. If not, I will try to post another video. Everybody stay safe. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, house guests. Bye-bye.